The wind screamed off the Atlantic, cold enough to bite through silk. Evelyn Ross stood at the edge of the rocks with seawater clinging to her hair and dress. Her hands shook, not from the cold, but from the man in front of her. Sebastian Walker looked like a stranger wearing the face she once trusted. He held Gwyneth Petrello close, as if Evelyn were the threat, and not the woman he had broken. "Why, Sebastian?" Evelyn said. "After everything we built, why are you doing this to me?" Sebastian's jaw flexed, and his eyes stayed flat. "Because I finally see you. You sold my company secrets and tried to destroy me." Evelyn tasted salt and blood, and she forced her voice steady. "I did not leak anything. She forged it, and you know she did." Gwyneth pressed a hand to her own throat, a performance of fragile pain. "Evelyn, please. The evidence is clear, and you keep lying. Is this because he chose me?" Evelyn snapped her gaze to Gwyneth. "Stop pretending. You set me up, and you know you did." Sebastian lifted his chin, as if disgust were a crown. "Enough. You have no remorse, and you still want to hurt her." Evelyn took a step toward him, and the cliff stole the ground behind her. She saw it then, the small smile Gwyneth tried to hide. She saw the way Gwyneth's fingers tightened on Sebastian's sleeve like a leash. "You are making a mistake," Evelyn said. "You will regret this." Gwyneth leaned in, her voice too soft for the wind. "Sebastian, she will never stop. If you let her walk away, she will come for us." Sebastian stared at Evelyn, and something ugly rose in him, fast and final. "You want to haunt me?" he said. "Fine. Go do it." Evelyn felt her heartbeat turn to ice. "Sebastian, listen to me. If you push me, you are choosing a lie over the truth." His hand shot out and slammed into her shoulder. The world tilted, and the roar of the ocean swallowed her scream. For one breath she saw his face, not angry, just empty. She saw Gwyneth's eyes, bright with victory. "I loved you," Evelyn said, and the words left her like a last confession. Then the sea rose to meet her. The impact knocked the air from her lungs and dragged her down into black water. She fought, but the waves hit like fists, and the cold wrapped around her ribs. Her vision narrowed to a thin tunnel of gray. Somewhere above, Gwyneth's laughter threaded through the wind, distant and cruel. Evelyn's fingers went slack. She thought, "This is how it ends." And then a hard beam of light cut through the water, and hands found her. Evelyn woke to the sharp smell of disinfectant and diesel fuel. She lay on a narrow bed, wrapped in blankets that scratched her skin. A man sat beside her, calm as a banker and watchful as a predator. "Evelyn Ross," he said. "New York's brightest analyst, thrown away like trash." Evelyn tried to lift her head, and pain flashed white behind her eyes. "Who are you?" she whispered. "Why did you pull me out?" The man smiled without warmth. "Marcus King, a businessman. And I saved you because I hate Sebastian Walker." Evelyn swallowed, and the motion burned her throat. "That is not enough." Marcus folded his hands. "It is enough for me. But for you I have a better offer. You can disappear. You can become untouchable. And you can collect the debt they owe you." Evelyn pictured Sebastian's hand on her shoulder. She pictured Gwyneth's triumphant eyes. Something inside her, soft and trusting, cracked into shards. "I want them to pay," she said. Her voice surprised her, steady and cold. Marcus nodded, as if this were the only acceptable answer. "Then you will die tonight." On paper. Over the next days she floated in and out of sleep while Marcus moved like a shadow around her life. Doctors came and went, paid in cash, asking no questions. Marcus's people recovered Evelyn's necklace from the shoreline and planted it with her torn dress. They filed a report, arranged the search, and fed the press a clean story. Evelyn Ross fell from a cliff and vanished into the Atlantic. A memorial followed, tasteful and empty. Sebastian gave a statement with hollow eyes. Gwyneth cried on camera, perfect and pure. Evelyn watched it on a muted screen, her hands curled into fists beneath the blanket. "You will need a new face," Marcus said. "A new name. A new history." Evelyn stared at her reflection, bruised and pale, and made a decision that felt like surgery without anesthesia. "Valentina Costa," she said. Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Why that?" "Because Evelyn died in the water," she said. "Valentina survived." 3 months later, she boarded a private jet with scars hidden under tailored clothes. She studied finance the way some people studied weapons. She learned leverage, pressure, timing, and how to smile while cutting. By the end of the first year, investors stopped calling her a prodigy and started calling her dangerous. By the end of the third year, they called her boss. On the fourth night, Evelyn woke screaming from a dream of falling. Marcus did not ask if she was all right. He simply placed a glass of water in her hand and waited until her breathing slowed. Pain is information, he said. Use it. Evelyn stared at the water, watching her reflection tremble. I trusted him, she said. I defended him in rooms full of sharks. I built his empire with my hands. Marcus's voice stayed even. And he let someone else write the story. That is what weak men do. Evelyn turned her head toward the small porthole window. Dark waves slapped the hull, steady and relentless. I will not be weak, she said. Marcus nodded, satisfied. Then you will learn to be patient, he replied. Revenge is not a firework. It is a long winter. New York welcomed Valentina Costa with cameras and speculation. Her plane touched down at Teterboro, and a black car took her into Manhattan like a knife sliding into a sheath. From the back seat, she watched the skyline rise, sharp and familiar. She did not feel nostalgia. She felt the calm focus of a storm that had chosen its landfall. Marcus sat across from her, holding a folder thick with numbers and sins. Walker Group is bleeding, he said. Debt, lawsuits, panic. They are begging for capital. Valentina flipped through the pages, and her mouth curved into something that was not a smile. Where is Sebastian? She asked. Still in the chair, Marcus said. But he looks like he wants to fall out of it. And Gwyneth? Marcus's eyes narrowed. She wears the title of Mrs. Walker like armor. She spends money like it is oxygen. And she is moving assets the way rats move before a fire. Valentina tapped the folder. Good. He needs to watch his world burn slowly. That afternoon, she walked into a conference room on the 42nd floor of Walker Group's headquarters. Executives sat stiffly around a polished table, their smiles too wide and their fear too obvious. Sebastian stood at the head, in a wrinkled suit that used to fit him better. His hair was unkempt, and his eyes carried the kind of exhaustion that never healed. Valentina met his gaze, and she saw the man who had pushed her into the sea. She felt nothing like love. She felt a clean, precise disgust. Marcus introduced her with the smooth authority of a man who owned the room. Valentina Costa, CEO of Costa Meridian Capital. Valentina extended her hand. Mr. Walker, she said. I hear you are looking for a partner. Sebastian took her hand, and his fingers tightened as if he had grabbed a memory by accident. His eyes searched her face with a hunger that made her skin crawl. Thank you for coming, he said. We would be honored. Gwyneth rose from her seat, draped in white silk and impatience. I am Gwyneth Walker, she said. His wife. Valentina let her gaze rest on Gwyneth for one long beat. Of course, Valentina said. I recognize ambition when I see it. Gwyneth's smile twitched. Sebastian cleared his throat and launched into a pitch full of desperation disguised as confidence. Valentina listened, asked questions, and let silence do the damage. She corrected his projections with numbers he should have known. She pointed out risks he could not answer. Each time he faltered, the room tightened around him like a noose. At the end, Valentina set her pen down. I will invest, she said. But I want a board seat. And I want access. Full access. Gwyneth's chair scraped hard against the floor. Absolutely not, she snapped. You want to steal our company. Valentina turned her head slowly. Mrs. Walker, your company is already being stolen. It is just not by me. Sebastian rubbed a hand over his face. We do not have a choice, he said, and his voice broke on the last word. Valentina watched his pride crumble, and she felt a small, cold satisfaction. Later, Sebastian cornered Valentina near the window, away from Gwyneth's watchful eyes. Your questions were sharp, he said. You sound like someone who has lived inside this business. Valentina held his gaze. I have, she said. I do not gamble with other people's futures. Sebastian's mouth tightened. Evelyn used to say that, he murmured. Valentina let a small pause hang between them. Then you should have listened to her, she said. Sebastian flinched, as if she had touched a bruise. With Valentina on the board, Walker Group opened its doors to her like a patient exposing a wound. She placed her people in finance, compliance, and operations, each one loyal and quiet. She requested audits that sounded routine and felt like interrogation. She reviewed contracts that had Gwyneth's fingerprints all over them. She found transfers that did not belong. She found invoices that were fiction. She found a private account in the Cayman Islands, fed by the company like an artery. Marcus brought her more, a thin file labeled Timothy Carter, Sebastian's former assistant. Marcus said, he built the fake leak case against you. Valentina did not flinch at the word you. She had trained herself not to. Bring him in, she said. 2 nights later, Timothy Carter sat across from her in a private room at a quiet hotel bar. He looked older than 30, the way fear ages a man fast. "Ms. Costa," he said, "I do not know why you want to see me." Valentina sipped water and let him sweat. "Because you know what happened 3 years ago," she said. Timothy blinked too quickly. "I was an employee. I followed orders. Gwyneth wanted a scapegoat, and Sebastian wanted someone to blame." Valentina leaned in, her voice low. "And if I give you a new order?" Timothy swallowed. "What kind of order?" "The kind that keeps you out of prison," Valentina said. "Or the kind that sends you there." Timothy's hands shook on his glass. "I did not mean for it to go that far," he whispered. "I did not know he would push her." Valentina watched him, and behind her calm she felt the old cliff, the cold water, the weight of betrayal. "You will tell the truth," she said. "And you will give me proof. Every email, every call, every transfer." Timothy looked at the door, then back at her. "If I do, Gwyneth will destroy me." Valentina's expression stayed smooth. "She will try," she said. "And she will fail." Within days, Timothy delivered a digital package that smelled like guilt and panic. It contained forged documents, staged messages, and a recorded conversation between Gwyneth and Timothy arranging the leak narrative. Valentina stored it in 3 places and smiled for the first time in years. Meanwhile, the house inside the house cracked. Sebastian and Gwyneth fought behind closed doors, their arguments spilling into hallways and assistants' whispers. Gwyneth accused him of staring at Valentina. Sebastian accused her of draining the company with reckless spending. "You promised me this life," Gwyneth yelled one night, loud enough for staff to hear. "I earned it. And now you act like I am the problem." Sebastian's voice turned raw. "We are the problem." All of this started with Evelyn. Silence followed, then the sound of something shattering. Valentina listened to the report from her security team and felt the satisfaction sharpen. She began to appear in Sebastian's orbit like a coincidence. She offered solutions in meetings and left him with the impression he needed her to survive. She let him believe she respected him, just enough to feed his hunger for redemption. Once, in an elevator, he asked, too softly, "Have we met before?" Valentina looked at the mirrored doors and saw their reflections, 2 ghosts wearing expensive clothes. "Not that I recall," she said. "But regret can make strangers feel familiar." Sebastian went pale. She stepped out on her floor and left him trapped with his own thoughts. Valentina also opened a second front, one Sebastian could not see at first. She quietly bought distressed Walker debt through intermediaries and let the market whisper about it. She arranged for a friendly journalist to dig into old rumors about the leak case and ask why the timeline never matched. She did not publish anything yet. She only planted questions like seeds. Sebastian started calling late at night, asking for advice he pretended was professional. "If you were me," he said once, voice rough, "where would you start to find the truth?" Valentina looked out at the city from her penthouse, remembering the way he had looked at her on the cliff. "Start with the person who benefited," she said. "Start with the person you protected." Sebastian was silent for a long moment. "Gwyneth," he whispered, and the word sounded like dread. Gwyneth did not sleep. She sat in her penthouse office with receipts, bank alerts, and a private investigator's report spread like a battlefield map. "Valentina Costa does not exist," the investigator said on speaker. "At least not before 3 years ago." Gwyneth's nails dug into her palm. "Find out who paid for her schooling," she hissed. "Find out who made her. And find out what she wants." The investigator hesitated. "Mrs. Walker, her security is not normal. This is not a social climber." Gwyneth smiled, and the expression looked wrong on her face. "Then she bleeds like everyone," she said. "Find a vein." The next day, a scandal piece hit a gossip site. It claimed Valentina had manipulated markets overseas and ruined a family business in Italy. It used blurry photos and anonymous sources, the cheapest kind of poison. Gwyneth forwarded it to board members with fake concern. "We must protect the company from predators," she wrote. Valentina read the article once and laughed softly. She called Marcus. "She is panicking," Valentina said. "Good." Marcus's tone stayed calm. "Do not underestimate panic," he warned. "A cornered animal bites." That evening, a waiter at a charity gala spilled red wine down Valentina's dress. The apology came too fast, the hands too clumsy. Valentina caught the glint of a phone camera aimed at her waist, ready to capture an embarrassing moment. She stepped back, leaving the stain on silk but not on her composure. "Accidents happen," she said, voice polite. Then she leaned in, eyes cold enough to stop breath. Tell Gwyneth she needs better help. The waiter went pale. Across the room, Gwyneth watched from behind, a smile that shook at the edges. Sebastian arrived late, looking like a man dragged by obligation rather than desire. He found Valentina near a balcony, the city spread below like a promise he could not keep. You saw it, he said quietly. She is trying to smear you. Valentina did not turn. She is trying to protect her lie, she replied. Sebastian's voice cracked. If she lied about you, what else did she lie about? Valentina finally faced him. You are asking the wrong question, she said. The question is why you wanted to believe her. Sebastian swallowed. Because she looked innocent, he admitted. Because Evelyn looked strong. And strong women are easy to blame. Valentina held his gaze until he looked away. That is the first honest thing you have said to me, she replied. On the drive home, Gwyneth exploded. You were staring at her. She screamed at Sebastian. Do you want her? Do you want to replace me? Sebastian gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles whitened. Stop, he said. I cannot breathe when you do this. Gwyneth laughed, sharp and terrified. You could breathe when you pushed Evelyn, she said. The car swerved slightly. Sebastian slammed the brakes at a red light and turned on her, eyes wild. Do not say her name, he growled. Not like that. Gwyneth's smile vanished. She realized, in that moment, that she had won the man, but lost the center of him. And she decided Valentina had to disappear permanently. The following week, Valentina met Timothy Carter again, this time in daylight, in a law office Marcus controlled. Timothy's face was gray with stress, and his hands would not stop moving. She knows, he said. Gwyneth knows I talked to you. Valentina stayed calm. Then you are done being her weapon, she said. You are going to be mine. Timothy shook his head. She has messages. She has people. She will ruin me. Valentina slid a folder across the table. Inside were photographs of Gwyneth meeting her lover, and bank transfers tied to shell companies. She will ruin you only if you stay loyal to her, Valentina said. If you testify, she ruins herself. Timothy stared, breathing shallowly. What do you want from me? A clean confession, Valentina said. And one more recording. That night, Timothy called Gwyneth from a phone Marcus provided, wired and secure. He told her he had found information about Valentina's past and wanted to sell it. Gwyneth agreed to meet, hungry for control. Marcus's team set the room, set the microphones, set the exits. Valentina watched from a second suite through a live feed, her face expressionless. Gwyneth arrived wearing black, a funeral color she did not understand she was choosing for herself. Talk, she snapped at Timothy. What did you find? Timothy swallowed and played his part. People say Valentina was someone else, he said. Someone you killed. Gwyneth's eyes flashed. Do not be stupid, she said. No one killed anyone. Evelyn jumped. Timothy's voice shook the right amount. Sebastian pushed her. Gwyneth smiled, small and cruel. He did what he had to do, she said. She would have ruined us. And she was going to expose me. Timothy leaned forward. So you framed her, and you let him do it. He pressed. Gwyneth's impatience turned into arrogance. I framed her, she said. I wrote the evidence. I made Sebastian believe. He was easy. He always was. Valentina stared at the monitor, and for a second the old pain rose like a wave. Then it passed, replaced by clarity. She ended the feed and walked into the hallway where Marcus waited. We have enough, Marcus said. Valentina nodded once. Now we choose the stage, she replied. 2 days later, Sebastian showed up unannounced at Valentina's office. He looked exhausted, but there was a hard focus in his eyes that had not been there in years. Tell me, he said. Tell me what you know. Valentina watched him carefully. Why should I? She asked. Sebastian's voice broke. Because I cannot live with the doubt, he said. Because if I was wrong about Evelyn, then I am worse than I ever admitted. Valentina stood and walked to the window, letting the city reflect in the glass. You will get the truth, she said. But not in private. Sebastian frowned. Why? Valentina turned, eyes like stone. Because you did not ruin her in private, she said. So you do not get redemption in private either. The shareholder meeting was not held at headquarters that year. It was held at a hotel ballroom on Fifth Avenue, where chandeliers made every lie look expensive. Reporters waited outside, hungry for collapse. Inside, investors watched Sebastian Walker with the cold patience of people who could smell weakness. Sebastian stood at the podium, shoulders tense, reading numbers like prayers. He promised recovery. He promised stability. He promised a future he no longer believed in. Gwyneth sat near the front with perfect posture, and a smile that did not reach her eyes. She wore pearls like a warning. Valentina took a seat in the second row, beside Marcus, her expression composed. To the crowd she looked like a savior. To Gwyneth she looked like a guillotine. When the agenda reached the vote on new capital terms, Valentina rose. Whispers spread, then silence followed her to the stage. Sebastian watched her approach as if he were seeing a storm walk in human form. Before we vote, Valentina said into the microphone, there is information the shareholders deserve. Gwyneth stood immediately. This is not appropriate, she said, voice tight. The meeting has rules. Valentina did not look at her. So did marriage, Valentina replied. And yet here we are. A few people gasped. Sebastian's face went gray. Valentina nodded to the technician. The lights dimmed, and the first audio file played. Gwyneth's voice filled the ballroom, sweet and sharp. Timothy, you will make it look like Evelyn sent the files. Sebastian will believe it if the paperwork is clean. Timothy answered, nervous and obedient. What if she fights back? Gwyneth laughed softly. Then we bury her. The room erupted. Directors argued with lawyers. Shareholders shouted questions. Gwyneth's eyes burned with fury, and she pointed at Valentina. She fabricated this. She screamed. She is attacking us because she wants control. Valentina raised her hand once, and security tightened around the aisle. I have documents, Valentina said. And I have witnesses. The screens changed. Transaction logs appeared, routed through shell companies and private accounts. Emails displayed with timestamps that matched the leaked narrative too perfectly to be real. Photos followed, Gwyneth in a private lounge, hand on another man's knee, smiling like she had never cared about vows. A low, disgusted murmur rolled through the room. Gwyneth's mouth opened, but no defense came out clean enough to survive the screens. Sebastian stared at the evidence as if each line were a nail in his own hands. Gwyneth, he whispered. Tell me this is not true. Gwyneth turned to him, and for a second the mask slipped. If you were stronger, none of this would matter, she hissed. Sebastian recoiled. Valentina stepped closer to the podium, voice calm, every word placed carefully. 3 years ago, the company blamed Evelyn Ross for the leak. She said. They stripped her role, froze her assets, and destroyed her name. They did it on forged proof. Sebastian grabbed the edge of the podium like it could keep him upright. Evelyn betrayed me, he said, but the sentence sounded weak, like a child repeating a story he did not understand. Valentina's gaze met his, steady and merciless. No, she said. You betrayed her. Sebastian shook his head, eyes wet and wild. I saw the files, he insisted. I saw the emails. Valentina's voice sharpened. You saw what Gwyneth wanted you to see. Because it was easier than admitting you were wrong. Gwyneth tried to rush the stage. 2 guards caught her arms, and she thrashed like an animal trapped in light. Let me go, she screamed. She is lying. She is nobody. Valentina looked at her with quiet contempt. You are the one who is nobody, Valentina said. A pretty face and an empty core. You wanted a life you did not earn, so you stole it. Gwyneth spat, eyes frantic. Evelyn is dead, she shouted. She drowned. Valentina reached into her purse and withdrew a pendant on a thin chain. It was simple, recognizable, and impossibly heavy with memory. Sebastian's breath hitched. His eyes fixed on it as if it were a ghost. Valentina held it up for the room to see. The police found this on the shore, she said. They called it proof of death. It was proof of a setup. Sebastian stumbled forward, voice barely audible. How do you have that? He asked. Valentina leaned toward the microphone. Because I wore it, she said. On the night you pushed me. The room froze again, every camera lifted. Sebastian's face drained of color. What did you say? He whispered. Valentina's voice stayed even. I said you pushed me, she repeated. She looked at the crowd. Evelyn Ross did not leak those files. Evelyn Ross did not attack anyone. Evelyn Ross was framed, ruined, and thrown into the Atlantic. Sebastian's knees buckled. He dropped to the floor, hands shaking, eyes locked on Valentina, as if he were seeing truth for the first time. Evelyn, he said, and his voice cracked on the name. Valentina let the silence build, then cut it clean. I am Evelyn Ross, she said. A sound moved through the room like wind through dry leaves, disbelief turning into recognition, then into shock. Sebastian crawled half a step, humiliated and desperate. I am sorry, he pleaded. I did not know. I thought you betrayed me. Evelyn looked down at him, her expression unreadable. You did not want to know, she said. You wanted someone to blame. And you chose the woman who loved you. Gwyneth screamed again, a high, cracking sound, and tried to bite one of the guards. Police officers entered from the side doors, drawn by the calls already made, uniforms steady amid the chaos. Gwyneth fought and cursed until the handcuffs snapped shut. You will regret this, she shouted at Evelyn. You cannot erase me. Evelyn leaned toward her, close enough for only Gwyneth to hear. I do not need to erase you, Evelyn said. You are doing it yourself. Timothy Carter walked in behind the officers, escorted, pale but determined. He handed a signed affidavit to the lead detective and avoided looking at Sebastian. The microphones caught the click of papers, the soft sound of a life collapsing into evidence. Reporters surged at the doors. Security held them back, but the story had already escaped. It would spread through the city before the meeting ended. Evelyn stepped away from the podium, leaving Sebastian on the floor with the truth. The next week moved like a machine. Lawyers filed motions. Auditors arrived with hard drives and blank expressions. Bank partners froze accounts and issued careful statements. Walker Group's board convened 3 times in 48 hours. Sebastian tried to enter the building on the second day, and was stopped by his own security team. Mr. Walker, access has been revoked. The guard said, polite and firm. Sebastian stared as if he had forgotten the meaning of the words. This is my company, he said. The guard did not blink. Not anymore. Evelyn attended the emergency board meeting in a dark suit, her hair pinned back, her face calm. The directors avoided her eyes at first, ashamed or afraid. She did not offer them comfort. She offered them a plan. We stabilize the debt, she said. We cut the rot. We rebuild under new governance. One director cleared his throat. And Mr. Walker? Evelyn's voice did not change. He steps down, she said. Or he is removed. The vote passed with brutal speed. Sebastian was formally removed as CEO for negligence, breach of fiduciary duty, and conduct damaging to shareholders. His severance was denied. His personal guarantees on company debt were triggered. By the end of the day, the empire he had worn like a crown had turned into a weight around his neck. Gwyneth was arraigned on multiple charges, and her attorneys tried to frame her as misguided and emotional. The judge did not care about her tears. Her bail was denied due to flight risk and the trail of hidden assets. From behind a courtroom table, she glared at Evelyn with a hatred that felt almost religious. You stole my life, Gwyneth mouthed. Evelyn did not respond. She had learned that silence could be sharper than any reply. Outside, cameras flashed, asking if Evelyn would press civil claims, if she would seek damages, if she would ruin Sebastian personally. Marcus walked at her side, blocking angles with his body like a shield. No comments, he said, and his voice ended conversations. At night, Evelyn sat alone in her penthouse and let the city lights flicker like distant fire. Marcus called once to confirm timelines and filings. Do you feel better? He asked, not quite mocking, not quite kind. Evelyn considered the question. I feel awake, she said. Sebastian tried to reach her through every channel he had left. He emailed old addresses, called old numbers, and showed up at Marcus's office twice. Finally, he found her at a charity foundation event, where she had agreed to speak about financial accountability. He stood near the exit, thinner and paler, like a man carved down by guilt. Evelyn, he said when she walked past. She paused, not from kindness, but from control. Do not touch me, she said before he could move. Sebastian's hands froze mid-lift. I just want to talk, he pleaded. I cannot sleep. I see you falling every time I close my eyes. Evelyn looked at him, studying the wreck he had become. Good, she said. Now you understand a fraction of what you did. Sebastian's voice shook. I was manipulated. I was blinded. Tell me what I can do. Evelyn's expression stayed level. You can live, she said. You can live with the truth. That is the punishment you earned. He swallowed hard. Do you hate me? He asked. Evelyn considered again, and her answer surprised even her. I do not have the energy, she said. Hate kept me alive, but I do not need it anymore. Sebastian flinched as if she had slapped him. Please, he whispered. Say you can forgive me one day. Evelyn leaned in slightly, her voice low enough to keep the moment private despite the crowd. Forgiveness is not something you demand, she said. It is something you become worthy of, and you are not. Evelyn walked away, leaving him standing under bright lights with no place to hide. Over the next months, Evelyn merged Walker Group into Costa Meridian Capital, restructuring debt and cutting toxic contracts. She kept employees who had been loyal and competent, and she removed executives who had enabled Gwyneth's theft. She built a compliance system that could not be bribed by charm. The market responded with cautious relief, then with respect. Timothy served a reduced sentence in exchange for cooperation and restitution. He apologized once in writing, and Evelyn filed the letter away without reading it twice. She did not need apologies, she needed outcomes. Sebastian sold his personal assets to cover judgments and debts. He left his penthouse, then his town car, then his last clean suit. He began to drift through the city like a man who had misplaced his own shadow. One afternoon, a tabloid photographed him near the waterfront, staring at the ocean with hollow eyes. The photo went viral for a day, then disappeared under the next scandal, because the world moved on. Evelyn did not. Not at first. She returned to the cliff once, on a clear winter morning, alone. The ocean looked calmer than she remembered, as if it had never tried to kill her. She stood at the edge, and let the wind cut against her cheeks. "You did not take me," she said softly, not to the sea, but to the past. Her phone buzzed with a message from Marcus. "Dinner, if you are free." Evelyn smiled, small and real. "Maybe." She texted back. She walked away from the cliff without looking back. Revenge had brought her home. Freedom would take her somewhere new.
Thanks for watching. Follow for more romance stories.